In a viral thread on Twitter, the account at Libs of TikTok highlights a video in which a mother is complaining at a school board meeting, saying that they did not inform her child was suicidal, that they had secretly placed her into an equality club and began coaching her on her identity. Effectively, well, I would say grooming children. Parents, in my opinion, have the responsibility over a child's future and what they're learning and how they're developing. But I got to be honest, in many ways, I blame the parents. Because I, for one, despise public schools. I despise the education system overwhelmingly, from kindergarten to high school to college. I believe it is awful, and I believe that parents don't care. Now, I will be the first to admit, in modern society, parents have to work. And they can't just leave their kids sitting around, and they can't bring their kids to work. So what do? Put their kids in institutionalized learning facilities where they say, I trust this random government employee to take care of my kids and teach them proper. Now they're getting a cold, hard wake-up call. But this has been going on forever. School sucks. You've heard it. Kids say it all the time, but you don't listen. And this is what's so frustrating for me. I remember going through grade school. I remember saying school sucks. I remember talking about how teachers were pieces of trash and they disrespect, they humiliate, and they coach and groom children. Let me tell you some stories. I had one teacher who would walk in the classroom, go read page 50 to 60, and then walk out and be gone. And we'd all just sit there being like, okay. Now, I was lucky. When I went to my parents and said, this is garbage and I shouldn't be here, eventually my parents were like, okay, you're right. This is awful, because I was fortunate enough that they believed me. But I suppose I was lucky in that I have older siblings who also said this. My parents didn't necessarily believe them right away. But once we were all basically saying the system is broken, my parents were like, we need to do something. We need to act on this. You know, my mom tutored all of me and my siblings when we were very young, before we even started kindergarten. And I feel like my parents really cared about what we learned, and they were passionate about us becoming better people. I take a look at many of these schools and take a look at many of these parents. And sure, they may care to a certain degree. Of course, they love their kids. But it is remarkable how much we have as a society a trope about schools being garbage, about kids saying, I hate my teacher, I hate my school, and parents being like, too bad, stop complaining. That to me is remarkable. Maybe you should listen to your child. Well, now what's happening is we have this thread. The schools are taking these kids and they're coaching them. They're indoctrinating them. And in many ways, in my opinion, grooming them into sexual behaviors that kids should not be involved in. But parents don't listen. And worse still, teachers are making sure the parents can't hear either. In this thread, Libs of TikTok says 2 teachers at a California school reportedly coached a 12-year-old into a trans identity behind her parents' back. The school also changed her name and pronouns without informing the parents. This was the mom's speech tonight, and she is screaming. She is absolutely screaming. I can play some of it, but I hope you're ready. It could be loud.
Nothing wrong. They've done nothing wrong. A mistake? How long of a mistake? How many mistakes are we going to take before my child almost lost her life? They didn't tell me that my child was suicidal. You allowed these teachers to open their classrooms teaching predatory information to a young child, a mindful child that doesn't even know how to comprehend it all.
So I don't want to play too much of that. Just you get the point, right? I want to show you something, and then I want to read you the stories behind what this is about. I want to show you this from Quora. It says, I joined the GSA club, that's the Gay Straight Alliance, but my parents are homophobic. Do you think they'll somehow find out? I'm bi, by the way, and they don't know. Here we go. One response is back in 2019, says confidentiality and safety are part of GSA programs. Gay and non-gay students belong. So if your parents do question you, tell them this. Discuss your concerns at GSA meetings and learn what strategies the advisor and fellow students have for dealing with questioning parents. You are not required to tell your parents personal information. If you experience any emotional or physical abuse from any adults, tell your GSA advisor or other trusted adult immediately. These schools, well, I can certainly respect that there are abusive parents. There are parents who would harm their children. That's wrong. Those parents should be arrested and they should be criminally charged for beating or harming their kids. But what does harm mean? What you have just seen from several years ago were people telling minors not to inform their parents. So let me tell you something. If you think taking your child and putting them in a government institutionalized learning facility is a safe space, you, in my opinion, are abusing your kid. Now, there are good public school teachers, but I think the whole system is absolutely broken. That being said, I understand a lot of people can't afford it. A lot of people struggle with how to have their kids be looked after while they're trying to work to make ends meet. I don't have all the answers. But I can say at the very least, you can make sure you're active at PTA meetings and you speak with your kids. You give your kids a safe environment to express their ideas, to talk to you about what's going on. Because if you don't, predators will groom your children. That's what's happening. Here's a story from the Epoch Times. Parents say daughter was coached on LGBTQ identity at California school. Parents outraged over school staff who allegedly disguised the names of the Gay Straight Alliance clubs at a California middle school are planning to voice their concerns at a school board meeting, as we just saw. Jessica Conan has alleged that school staff indoctrinated her then 12-year-old daughter in an LGBTQ club disguised as an equity club. She told the Epoch Times she plans to speak at the December 15th meeting. The two teachers at Buena Vista Middle School that's in Salinas were recorded coaching other teachers to conceal the nature of LGBTQ clubs from parents at a sold-out California Teachers Association conference held in Palm Springs, California. The CTA event was billed as the 2021 LGBTQ plus issues conference, Beyond the Binary Identity and Imagining Possibilities. I think it's great if there are kids who are growing up and they're realizing that they have certain identities or certain things that need to be discussed with as it pertains to their personal lives and nature. I also think there's an obligation among these schools to inform parents of what's going on with their kids so that parents can decide what's best for their children and help raise them to have good lives. But what do you think it is when at government institutionalized learning facilities, they are actively saying, do not tell your parents? Evil. Evil. Now, there are bad parents who I think would be mean or commit harms against children. It happens. They're abusive parents. But most of these parents are simply trying to figure out what's right for their kids. Withholding information from them, in my opinion, is criminal, or at least it should be a statutory crime. Look, there's a story going viral where a parent talks about how their kid was being indoctrinated in school. So what did they do? They took the kid out of school, took away social media, took away their cell phones, brought them to a safe place where they worked with them on character development and growing and figuring out who they were. And they said their kids started to revert back to how they used to be. We've all seen these before and after college videos. Have you seen? Well, I say we all, but you've seen them, right? Where you have like a young woman and she's smiling and she's got regular, long hair and she's wearing normal clothes. And then it says before college. And then it shows her, after college and half her head is shaved. She's got septum piercing and huge gauges and she's all like angry looking. And there's photos of dudes in much similar ways. Many women, though, when they go to college and they go through this, weird cult-like indoctrination, they go insane. People are driven by social acceptance. I believe it's fair to say women more so than men. And thus, I think that's why you see more women in these photos and these stories than you do men. But people want to be accepted socially. So when you go to college and you see all the kids and they're all hanging out and having a good time and you want to fit in, you want to be a part of the club, it makes sense. Humans are tribal. Then they start adopting ridiculous fringe beliefs. I don't care if it is, far left or far right. This is bad for all of us. But more importantly, these schools are violating the rights of the parents. Children need guidance, and the government should not be the one that is dictating to an absolute degree that parents should not be allowed to be involved in this. They said the teachers held a workshop called How We Run a GSA in Conservative Communities and described the obstacles they face as activist teachers to conceal the activities of GSA clubs from parents. SUSD officials have not responded directly to inquiries, but SUSD did post an alert on its website notifying the community that school staff involved in the alleged incident have been suspended pending an independent third-party investigation. Conan claims that one of the teachers coaxed her daughter to join a lunch hour equality club and began affirming her daughter as transgender. Near the end of 6th grade, Conan's daughter told her she might be bi. And by middle of 7th grade, Conan was called to the school for a meeting with her daughter, a teacher, and the school principal. The teacher told Conan her daughter was trans fluid. I sat across the table and I was crying. I was trying to absorb everything. They kept looking at me angrily because I kept saying she, and that it was going to take me some time to process everything, she said. I was very confused. I was very upset. I was blindsided, completely blindsided. This is what these psychopaths do. They don't tell the parent. Then when they bring the parent in and say, these are facts, period, and the parent is confused, they get mad about it. Stop using the wrong pronoun. The teacher accused Conan of not being emotionally supportive of her daughter, who was to be called by a new name and male pronouns and would be using the unisex restroom at school. I felt she completely coached my child. Conan said she was hurt that her daughter had not come to her first, and the teacher acted in mean-spirited, smirking way towards her. It made me feel very, very small as a parent. I was unaware of anything. Not one time had she mentioned to me, oh, I think that I want to change my name or I'm transgender or anything. Nothing. I only heard bisexual one time, and that was it. Within a few days of the meeting, the King City Police Department showed up at her door and told her that there had been a complaint made to Child Protective Services. The police questioned her 2 children and asked them if they wanted to be removed from the home. They made me feel like a monster. But Conan complied and took her children to meet with CPS that week. According to Conan, CPS dropped the case and did not demand she call her daughter by masculine pronouns, as her teacher had insisted. Throughout the school year, Conan was afraid to ask questions about her daughter or her school activities, fearing that CPS could take her child away. After several meetings with teachers, Conan discovered the school knew her daughter had searched online for information about suicide, but never told her about it. They failed to tell me that part. So I was very angry. And after that, it's just been downhill. It is not okay for teachers to keep parents in the dark about gender identity issues or anything else. Her daughter, now 14, left Buena Vista and is now attending a new school where she's using her female birth name and feminine pronouns. And that, my friends, is what says to me abuse took place at these schools. You have these kids who are confused, scared, maybe depressed. They're going through puberty. They're trying to understand the world, and parents need to be there for their kids. But these psychopaths at government institutionalized learning facilities would withhold that information from the parents. Now, I know there are many leftists who are probably saying the reason she's probably only using feminine pronouns is because now she's been taken away from a supportive community. Imagine if these schools went to the parents first and said, we need to have a conversation about this, things that your daughter has said. And they all came out and said, we want to better understand what's happening. And actually, we're there for the child. Imagine. Maybe then the child would come to a loving place with their parents there for them, with real conversations, and then figure out who they were on their own, with guidance from those who would mentor them or who love and care about them and want them to grow up to be a better person. Instead, what we get at these schools, what appears to be a competition. You get these organizations that would lie to parents and tell kids things without proper guidance from those who will be there for them for the rest of their lives. These teachers, they'll be there for a year. They are destroying these children's lives. Here's what they say. Conan asked her daughter if she was sure and told her it was okay if she wanted to use a male name and pronouns her teachers had used at Buena Vista. But according to Conan, her daughter responded, Mom, they're not good people. I asked her, would you like to have an AKA on your attendance? She said, no, I don't want that, Mom. Things are better. She's in a different school, different surroundings. Nobody is really pressuring her. Conan's father, Gunter Conan, told the Epoch Times he can't believe the way the school treated his daughter and granddaughter. I've watched my daughter, what she went through. It really broke my heart. My daughter's done nothing wrong. If anything, she's too much of a good mom. He blames the school for getting police and CPS involved. Right is right, wrong is wrong. I think it's not their place to teach what they've taught to my granddaughter. I'm furious. Homeschool your kids, please. Seriously, homeschool your kids. I was lucky. I was homeschooled before I started regular grade school. I went to a private Catholic school for the first several years. And I think the private Catholic school is better than public school, but kind of bad for a lot of reasons. I think I had the benefit of going to a private school and then going to a public school and being like, wow. But at my public school, we didn't have any of this stuff. We just had a dose of reality. And I think there was a benefit for me there. But when I started high school and my parents saw how bad it really was, they took me out immediately. And once again, I was homeschooled. I never finished high school. And I think it's laughable. See, let me explain something to you guys. I mean, this is important. If you're moderate, if you're, disaffected liberal or post-liberal, whatever you want to call it, let me explain. High school does nothing for your kids. I mean, it's socializing. Do they really learn stuff? I mean, I can tell you this. What I was learning in high school was a repeat of what they already taught in grade school. I'm not exaggerating, and I was confused as to why I was wasting my time doing it. Certain questions would be left unanswered, and the school just did not care about me or any of these kids. It was garbage. It's absolute trash. But more importantly, many of these liberals use the fact that I didn't graduate high school as a derogatory statement. They say, haha, this proves everything. Let me explain something to all of you. Let me ask you, what do you want for your kids? Do you want them to be successful, to live good lives, to have a better life than you did? Well, I can certainly tell you this. From where I am, yeah, I'm living a much better life than my parents did. And I can certainly say that whatever they did worked out really well for me, my siblings, and the rest of my family. If you want your kids to go to an institutionalized learning facility so they can be indoctrinated and be form-fitted to the rest of the cult, then by all means, have them go to these schools, graduate, go to college, and do all the normal, normie stuff, and then wonder what went wrong. I think it's laughable that you have people riddled with school debt. Huge mistake. They're sitting there complaining, demanding the government pay off their debts because they can't. And then they would take to the internet and say, I'm smarter than Tim Pool, who's running a business that gets 50 million views per month with 30 employees making millions of dollars. Certainly, I'm smarter than this successful individual. Now, none of that means I'm a good person. None of that means I'm better than anyone else. But I can certainly say, think about what you want for your kids. Do you want them to be saddled with debt for the rest of their lives? To take out $50K to go to college, to use a degree that won't work for them at a time when the economy seems to be collapsing? Or do you want them to be free, to be responsible for themselves, to make enough to live a good, humble life, to be successful, have a family? Do you want them to fight for what they believe in? Do you want them to stand up for something and make the world a better place? Then I tell you this, these institutionalized learning facilities are the opposite of where your kids need to be. You need only look at the establishment voices who screech and cry, Tim Pool didn't finish high school. Because it shows you what they think is really important. Affirming you're a member of the cult. Going to these institutionalized learning facilities and getting your certificate. Let me tell you guys something. I was a director at a nonprofit working on fundraising, and it was a job that required a college degree for one I did not have. Why? Because I was good at the job. It's remarkable, really. We're in an era now where I think you can, I'm pretty sure Elon Musk says things like this, or Peter Thiel. You don't need a degree or diploma to be successful and to live a good life. It's sad that that lie has persisted for so long. That people believe that's the only path to success. In fact, I would tell you it is quite the opposite, is the path to failure. You are taking your kids, when you put them in college, you are telling them to do as you're told, never to solve your own problems, just to memorize and follow the leader. And then when they're 24 or 22 or whatever, they graduate college, they're going to be like, now what? What do I do? My whole life, someone told me what to do. I never had to figure it out for myself. No, your kids need to go out and be independent, learn how to solve their own problems. One of the things you can do if you have really young kids is teach them strategy games, help improve their memory with memory games. Teach them everything you can and speak to them like adults. Do not goo-goo gaga them. Do not assume that children are stupid just because they lack information. I was actually just showing my niece how to play chess. She wasn't particularly interested. And it was a chore to explain. It's your turn. You have to move the knight now. And she goes, that's the queen. The queen is white. That's the other queen. That one's black. And I'm like, those are correct. Now I just made my move and it's your turn to make your move. And she didn't want to do it. But you have to be patient. You're not dealing with, children are not stupid. Children lack information. That's it. In fact, children are very, very smart. The problem is people conflate knowledge with wisdom. And while I'll certainly say that wisdom comes from collecting knowledge and data and then being able to associate these things to better understand how they work with each other, children have the capability to solve problems. They have the capability to absorb information. They need to just absorb it. Do not treat your children like they are stupid. Talk to them like they're a normal adult human being, so that way they learn what it is to be a normal adult human being. I think one of the things that greatly benefited me was that my family owned a business. When I was about 9, 10, and 11 years old, my family had a cafe. And as I worked in that cafe and interacted with people, they did not treat me like, well, many were treating me like a child, but for the most part, the conversations I was privy to and a part of were adult conversations. Because the guy who comes in and needs to order a sandwich isn't going to go, oh, what a cute little child. Can you make me a roast beef sandwich? You know what roast beef is, right? No, he'd walk in and be like, can I get a roast beef with Havarti and dill mayo? And I'll take a cappuccino, double shot, please. And I'm like 10 and I'm like, okay. And then I would put in the order. I would give the sandwich order to the cook and then I'd make the drink. And they would be like, just get it done. I'm not going to sit here and play games with the kid. Some people didn't like that a kid was working there. But I got to see people stand there and talk about politics. I got to see them talk about their lives and finance. And that greatly benefited me. Because then I would come back to school and I would see the kids talk about dumb garbage like Power Rangers. So actually being exposed to the real world is a good thing. These schools are not the real world. These schools are institutionalized learning facilities where they indoctrinate your kids and keep you away from them. They keep secrets from you. Now, there are bad parents out there, and I understand why there are confidentiality programs, and I understand that. But most parents are good parents. However, now what they're trying to say is that if you're a parent who's concerned about your child and what they're learning, you're abusing them. This is why we saw everything in Loudoun County that we did. If you are a parent, you better know what's going on in your classrooms. You better talk to your kids, treat them like adults. Otherwise, you'll lose them. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.